Welcome to Lindy's Magpie Reads, and as you see, I have put on my judging robes because I am going to announce my personal Giller Longlist. In previous years, when I've been shadowing the Giller, I have done a lot of guesswork. I spent time evaluating different publishers, which books they were putting out, which they were likely to submit, looking at all the rules, looking at who the jurors are, and trying to guess. This time, I am only going to base my Giller Prize prediction on the books that I have actually read. So these are books that have been published in Canada between October 1st of 2021 and September 30th, 2022. Obviously, some are not yet published yet. I haven't read those. Nothing I can do about that. I've read 36 eligible titles and first chapters and portions of a whole bunch of other ones. I'll pop in a picture here of some of the ones that I've got that I read enough of to think, probably not going to be on the long list, but I still want to read it. So I will get to those in the future. And there's one that I'm reading right now, Finding Edward by Sheila Murray. I've still got another 80 pages to go. And I'm the kind of person who wants to keep gathering information before I make a decision. And I just had to say, no, I don't want to rush through this. I want to complete it with enjoyment. So this one is also not considered, although it's a strong book. We'll see. So of what I've read, out of these 36 books, I've chosen 12. The Giller Longlist is normally 12 books. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for originality in the voice, in the content, in the use of language. I want a singular voice. I want a vivid description. Just striking use of words and language. Arresting prose, all of that. I also want to emerge changed from the experience of reading a book. I want to feel an inner enlargement. I want a narrative that conveys the author's vision of the world. And I want layers of meaning. I want books that are worth rereading and that are likely to stand up over time. I look at what I think the author's premise is and how well they've executed it. Now, this alone is not enough. It's got to have the other things too. But I do like to see a book that grapples with a significant theme. And characterization is very important to me. I want believable characters, and I want to see them responding to situations and changing over time. So that's what I'm looking for. I have been a juror in the past for the Alberta Reader's Choice Award, and we used a rubric for that. I decided to use a rubric this year, but one that's based on Peg, the Book Prize Addicts rubric, and she uses a 25-point system, and I've mostly used that. So enjoyment, 6 points, characterization, 6 points, writing, 5 points, sense of place, 4 points, and plot, 4 points. And it's that last one that I've expanded to narrative arc, plot narrative arc. So that's 4 points, because a book doesn't have to necessarily have a strong plot, to my mind, for it to be excellent. I will link to Peg's channel down below. And I only started recording this 25-point system in July. So there are books that I read before that. But an interesting thing I've noticed just from the ones that I've been using this system for, and that is that at the 22 out of 25 point level, some of these books I'm giving 4 stars on Goodreads, and some of these books I'm giving 5 stars on Goodreads. And sometimes I start out with 4 stars, and then I keep thinking about the book and up it to 5 stars. So that tends to be at about the 22 out of 25 mark. So obviously this whole judging thing is very subjective, has to do with mood and particular state of mind, I guess, at the time that I read something. We take this with a grain of salt, right? There were a couple of books that I rated 22 out of 25 that didn't make this list, like Prophetess by Baharan Baniamadi and Dandelion by Jamie Chai Yan Liu. Good books, didn't quite make it onto my 12 best. All right. Actually, one of these that did make my 12 best, and I am going to actually give them to you in rating order, reverse order, starting with number 12 and going down to number 1, which I would award the prize to if it was all up to me. If I'm the boss, I'm the judge. So this first one, Avenue of Champions by Conor Kerr, in my 25-point rating system, it was 21 out of 25, but I gave it 5 stars. There's an ineffable quality, I guess, the something about the honesty, the authenticity, something that really grabs me emotionally. In Avenue of Champions, these are interconnected short stories set in the Alberta Avenue district of Edmonton, my home city. And Conor Kerr has got a character that features in most of the stories, or relatives in some of these stories. And in that way, it's actually a lot like Morgan Talty's Night of the Living Res. I had a very personal reaction to these, not only because I live in this city, but that first story starts outside of Edmonton and mentions a small community of St. Lina, a tiny, tiny hamlet. My grandmother is from there, and that's where she's buried. And when I read that, I've never seen St. Lina in a book before, and I cried so hard. I was thinking of my grandmother. I had to put the book down, cry, calm down before I could resume reading. So there are times when it's something just like that that just really connects in a book. As I said, this is my personal Giller Longlist. That's book number 12. Book number 11 is a collection of flash fiction. It's called Binge, 60 Stories to Make Your Brain Feel Different. It is by Douglas Coupland, and I read it 10 months ago. I actually listened to the audiobook. It's an excellent production with a whole bunch of different narrators, and it was so good. I listened to the entire thing twice. Many of the stories have tangential connections or recurring characters. I like stories that make my brain feel different. For example, after reading one of the stories in here, I will never look at a cargo carrier on top of a car in the same way. So, that's my pick number 11. Pick number 10 is We Measure the Earth with Our Bodies by Tsering, Yangzom, Lama. This is a story of 3 generations of stateless Tibetans, and the youngest is going to university in Canada and discovers in a private collection a sacred object that she recognizes belongs to her people from her village, and what she does about that. Book number 9 is this one, Everything Affects Everyone. It's by Shawna, Lemay. And I read this when it came out last year. It's been a while, and it stayed with me. This is a book for people who want something unusual, a different style of writing, and are open to the idea of reading about a possible angel. It is a philosophical and experimental novel. You can get the idea of what kind of writing it is by the epigraphs. There's Rainer Maria Rilke, Clarice Lispector, Helen, Chau. So in it, 6 women have conversations about art and how to live. One of the things that I learned from this book is that the word for angel comes from the word for messenger. Next up is another book that features somebody with wings. Did I say? Yeah, I did say. There's wings in that one. So in Ezra's Ghosts by Darcy Tamayose, this is my book number 8. It is a collection of 4 stories. The 2 middle stories are novellas, and then there are a pair of connected stories at the beginning and at the end. Somewhat experimental in that one of them is told from the viewpoint of a ghost, a woman who's been murdered. Another one is about an old man who seems to be growing wings. It's a book that looks at our place in the world and how technology affects us and changes us. Just something, it's just got that extra something special that I know that I'll keep thinking about these stories, and I look forward to more by Tamayose as well. Number 7 on my list is another collection of short stories. It's called Personal Attention Roleplay by Helen Chau Bradley. So this is a debut collection by a queer author who uses they, them pronouns, and the title story is one that I'm definitely still thinking about which is about a person interacting with ASMR on video, and the final story too, which is about a all-women punk band. Book number 6 is Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. I listened to this one in audio. Sometimes that can change my experience of a book, but I think that this one I would like just as well in print, because Mandel's writing is just such a delight, and she plays a lot with time in this one. It's a science fiction story. So this one left me with this great sense of wonder, and I really liked how there's a kind of kaleidoscopic feel to different narratives that span 300 years and all come together in the end. Book number 5 is Heather O'Neill's When We Lost Our Heads. I had a bit of a bumpy road with this one because I got to about, 20 or 30 pages in, and something about the story, I found something upsetting, and I knew I was in the wrong mood for it and set it aside. I'm glad that I did that, because later when I picked it up again and read it again, I loved it. Fairy tale-like, and it's dark and funny and subversive and very feminist. Yeah, loved it. Number 4 on my list is Remnants by Céline Huyghebaert. I just talked about this in my most recent Friday Reads. The original French edition was an award winner. He won a Governor General's Award, and I think this English translation by Aleshia Jensen also deserves strong recognition. It's a story that's told in fragments about a daughter's grief and coming to terms with the death of her father, and how our memories are affected by our emotions, and how our perspective on things can change over time. Down to the end here. Book number third prize is going to My Volcano by John Elizabeth Stintzi. Queer, non-binary writer. It is weird, wonderful, pre-apocalyptic. It's got a large cast of mostly queer characters. There's a look at society that made a deep impression on me. Okay, my number 2 book, Buffalo is the New Buffalo, a collection of short stories. This is a fiction debut by Chelsea Vowel. And up until last week, this was holding my number 1 position. These are science fiction or speculative fiction stories with Métis content. And I love the ideas, I love the execution. There are author's notes after each story. Some of them have footnotes. A brilliant exploration of ideas about history and society. The title, by the way, is a play on education is the new buffalo, thinking that once the buffalo were all exterminated, or nearly all, that the Métis people, in order to get ahead in the world, will have to use education instead. Chelsea is saying, now let's go back to our origins. So that's buffalo is the new buffalo. And the one that beat this one out, so I'm giving the Giller prize to not just number one on my long list, but this is the one that I think is going to win. Animal Person, collection of short stories by Alexander MacLeod. In my 25-point system, this is the only one that scored perfectly. 25 out of 25. And every one of these stories is superb. They are stories about finding our place in the world and finding our place in relation to other people. And it just has the emotional resonance that lifts it above buffalo is the new buffalo. This one, buffalo is the ideas. This one, the emotions. They're both really good. So, there's my personal long list. There are 2 other shadow jurors on our team. One is Penny. She's the one who brought me on to this team a couple of years ago. Other members have since dropped off. Penny has a book blog, Literary Hoarders, which I will link down below, along with another woman, her friend Elizabeth. And Penny also looks after the Shadow Giller website, and she has posted her Giller wish list there already. And our newest member is Jolene, Bookworm Adventure Girl from BookTube. And Jolene has a long list hopefuls video, which I will link down below. And the 3 of us are very much looking forward to the official announcement, which will be on Tuesday. So that's September the 6th. And once we see the official list, there'll be more reading to do. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be seeing you all soon. I'm still filming. I'll just cut this out.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
What are you wearing?
I'm wearing my judge robes because